Hey everybody, it's Rebecca Johnson of Supergirl Radio. I'm getting the live stream started here before we get going officially. So I want to be punctual at 9 p.m. Eastern is when we say we're going to go live. So I want to make sure we're live at 9 p.m. Eastern. So we are going to be discussing the Supergirl season 1 episode Solitude for this live stream / podcast episode of Supergirl Radio. So if you have any thoughts about season 1 or this Solitude episode in particular, lots happening in Solitude. Some introductions of let's see, just I guess one introduction of a new character who plays a pretty pivotal role towards the end of season 1. And some really good stuff in this one, especially some dramatic scenes, people revealing some secrets and things. So lots to talk about in Solitude. So if you have any questions or comments, feel free to drop those in the live chat and we'll try to pull them up as we get to them. We got some snap judgments, so stay to the end of the discussion and we'll play some snap judgments. You in the live chat, in the live and wired chat, you can participate in snap judgments. So feel free to respond to those as well. Let's see, what else can we talk about? Got lots of news stuff coming up in this episode, some things that we didn't get a chance to cover last time around because we had some pretty big news with the DC movie slate, movie and TV show slate that was announced last week. So we're now getting some news, going through some news so we can catch up on that. And we have an exclusive clip from the Flash podcast that we're going to get to talking about something Supergirl related. So I'll have that during the news section, and then we'll get to talking about the episode. New Rachel in the chat says Indigo's one of my favorites. And I always thought Indigo should have come back. Yes, I would have been about it. Really great hand acting and the performance by Laura Van Voort. One of the tops. The wig maybe up for a working it or wiggy discussion, but the hand acting is really stellar. So yeah, Indigo is a shining star in this episode in particular. So I see Morgan in the background. Are you good to go? Can I bring you into the live stream? Yes. Okay. I see added. So StreamYard, if anybody's interested, if any our listeners are interested, StreamYard, which is the web browser program that we use to live stream, has added a new feature called Show Headlines. And so headlines are kind of like a lower third underneath your name. So I pointed it out to Morgan, and she dropped a very good description of herself in that.
Thank you. It's true. I'm a big fan of hand acting. There was a lot of it going on in this one. So I feel like I wanted to come in strong to this podcast stream. I was like, now that I can do a subhead, giving more information about myself, which I think is important.
See, I was going real serious, like professional about it. Just like, hey, if you want to find me on Instagram, here's how to find me.
I don't know what's more professional than letting everybody know I'm a big fan of hand acting.
So now that I know, we want to take the more creative route, a more descriptive route.
I saw the reel you sent me this afternoon, and I was like, challenge accepted.
So you might see some of that in the future because we're trying to utilize all of StreamYard's features. All right. Well, we have a lot to get to, a lot of news. So, Morgan, you got the doc ready to go?
Okay.
All right. So we're going to officially get started here, and we'll be back in a minute.
Leslie Lar's downfall is just that eyebrow twitch that she can't help doing. Could you imagine if Hope was like, let's add that to the PowerPoint? Excuse
what
me?
year is it?
How old am I? This is how a podcast breaks up.
This is the last episode of Supergirl Radio. You want a Kryptonian? You got one.
Is it a movie about saving Argo? The answer to that one is no. It's called Witch for a Summer! ! Where does she want to go? Ask her. Talk to her. Really commune with flat Supergirl.
Did we set the bar too high or too low?
I think we set the bar real medium.
You're doing an intensely adequate podcast.
Good, good.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Noyce, and you're listening to Supergirl Radio.
McGurk! I love typing.
Not mess with my Google Docs, Meeksy.
Supergirl Radio is going live every night of the week. How do you like it? Is becoming a human burrito a plus or a minus? I don't know. It does seem snug.
I mean, they say you are what you eat.
Cheer up. I love that.
So I do a podcast called Supergirl Radio, and one of our segments is Lena Luthor, Boardroom or Ballroom, because
she looks like a boss in this coat.
Nasty Luthor like a different Luthor? It's not just Lena being mean?
No.
Helen Slater here. So fun to know that you're hosting a podcast called Supergirl Radio.
Welcome to Supergirl Radio, your source for all things related to the CW Supergirl TV series and the character of Zor-el. My name is Rebecca Johnson.
I'm Morgan Glennon.
And for this episode of the podcast, we are live and wired on the Supergirl Radio Facebook page and the DC TV Podcast YouTube channel to go back in time. Since Morgan didn't review Supergirl episodes as a full-time co-host of Supergirl Radio until the episode World's Finest, which aired in March of 2016, now making that, almost 9? No, that can't be.
No.
It's 20.
No, you take
23.
That back.
Oh, no, 7.
7.
Maybe not as bad as my bad math.
I was like, don't say 9.
7 is still pretty old. But that aired in March of 2016. But since then, we're revisiting the first season to get Morgan's thoughts. This week, we will be discussing episode 15 of season 1 titled Solitude. If you're interested in listening to Supergirl Radio's original discussion from season 1 and our audio commentary about this episode, because we did that because we followed OG
That's right,
Kelly's
Kelly.
journey. Yeah. So
I clock Kelly in this one.
So if you want to hear those episodes, if you haven't listened to those before, the links are in the video description and will be in the audio podcast show notes for you to enjoy. And I think it's come up with some of the listeners who did not realize that we go live on YouTube and Facebook. So just want to invite you, if you've never joined us for a live stream. I don't know why we haven't mentioned it before, but if you, we say it every week that we're on Facebook and YouTube, but if you need to find us on YouTube, we're live streaming Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern. That's usually our time slot. That is the one we have carved out for ourselves for quite some time now. So if you want to join us on Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, we are live on the DC TV Podcast YouTube channel, which is at youtube.com/DCTV Podcast and facebook.com/Supergirl Radio. So if you're not a YouTube person, watch on Facebook. If you don't have a Facebook account, watch on YouTube. We are accessible pretty much anywhere you can consume video media. So just wanted to point that out in case people were not aware and wanted to come join us. That is how you can do it. Well, I guess before we do a little time traveling, we need to get to
the news.
The Flash podcast recently recorded an interview with The Flash's executive producer, Eric Wallace, and that will premiere on the DC TV Podcast YouTube channel on February 8th. So tomorrow, set your watches. But
for future folks.
But for future folks, that's true.
We got to think in terms of time travel. For people in the future,
Yes.
This was published and premiered on February 8th,
That's true.
2023 to be specific.
That's true. Whenever you're listening now, maybe it's up. Go check on the YouTube.
Go check it. See if it's there.
YouTube.com/DCTV podcast. If you are existing in 2016 listening to this, boy, there are some things coming up for you. But this is not going to be available for you quite yet. You're just going to have to hang in there through the global pandemic. Forget I said anything about that.
Yeah, that's too soon.
So yes, so it is going to premiere on the DCTV podcast YouTube channel on February 8th. But guess what? Because we're all friends here, we have an exclusive clip of them talking about Nia Nal's guest appearance and teasing perhaps another Supergirl mention within the episode.
You got your Supergirl character. Nia Nal is coming.
Yes.
When can we, again? I know you don't want. I know you're not gonna give away the spoiler. Can you tell when we're gonna see her?
Ooh, I don't even know if I can do that because of how it has implicated. I will give you this because I don't think this is a huge spoiler. That's an standalone interlude episode, not a graphic novel one. So that tells you right there. It's more in the middle.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. You know what? We will take it. We will take it.
We will take it.
So got some information and kind of no information all of this.
I feel wiser, but also like I know no details at all. I feel like you should. I feel like all the showrunners go through like a course where they're like, here's how to tell like a little tidbit, but to give actually no information whatsoever, so that you come out of these. I would do it at Comic-Con. I'd come out, I'd be like, man, I learned so much, and then I'd go back through my tapes and I'd be like, did I?
They actually didn't say anything.
Did anybody say anything?
They said a lot of words, but it didn't
Kudos.
mean anything. Yeah, so it sounds like maybe Nia Nal will be in the middle of the final season of The Flash. That's what it sounded like to me.
That's what I kind of got from that.
Yeah. So
a lot of Flash news coming out, it feels like, recently.
You mean just the TV show or also movie-wise?
So many things. But just today on the Legends side, we found out that it's likely that some Legends cast members are going to show up in the last season of The Flash as well.
Oh.
So, yeah, I was like, twist. Which we're going to be talking about on the Legends podcast a little bit later this week. We're going to do an emergency get-together to talk about, hey, we might see them again. We might see our favorite characters again, briefly, on The Flash. So, yeah, it seems like The Flash is trying to do everybody a solid and just shove in the entire Arrowverse. They're like, yeah, I'm ending the show The Flash, but also we're kind of ending the Arrowverse, let's be honest. So let's wrap it all up. Let's bring everybody in. Your story's done. Your story's done.
Yeah, so this is in addition to Oliver Queen somehow making an appearance, even though he died to rebuild the universe. Or the multiverse, really. So I'm looking forward to that explanation as to how he's back in it. He's back in the game.
I forgot about Oliver. Listen, you can't keep Oliver down. You can kill him however many times you want. He's coming back. He's coming back. There's no stopping him.
But they couldn't bring back Laurel Lance. Nope.
No.
Couldn't do that. She was dead. Cannot return.
She was there to show the finality of death, which is only applicable to her in her specific instance, but not to any of like her clones or like her side characters or her in a wig. That girl can come back.
Still better since season 4. I have sad news though. Andy says in the chat, sadly, that quote about Legends on Flash has been retracted.
Single tier.
It was a misquote, so no Legends will be on The Flash.
Oh,
well,
man.
That's disappointing, even for me. I was like, oh, that actually sounds pretty cool.
They can just wrap some stuff up. Okay. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Well, never. Easy come, easy go, I guess.
And did not watch the Okay, Morgan, are you there?
I'm back.
Okay, I think I'm back too. I don't know what just happened, but I think we're okay.
I wasn't sure which one of us was freezing up.
It could have been. It could have been both. I don't know.
Back in. Yeah, I was like.
This is why it is alive.
Live, everyone.
Let us know in the chat if y'all see us messing up or you can't hear us or anything. Sometimes there are buggy things that happen. So let us know. It could have been my internet. I don't know. But yeah, so keep us posted if there's some weird stuff going on. Okay, well, I'm sorry about that Legends news. That's disappointing.
That's a roller coaster of emotions, honestly.
they put it out there and then they're not doing it, so that is disappointing. But we will get Neonal in the final season of The Flash, so if you're interested in that. I asked about the Flash movie news because apparently there is a Supergirl. There's a Super Bowl trailer that's supposed to be coming out during the Super Bowl as a Super Bowl commercial, which I'm sure cost a pretty penny for the Flash movie. So we'll be keeping our eyes open for that to see if Supergirl makes an appearance in the newest trailer for the Flash movie. I guess they've finished their effects. So I guess it's coming out. It might be coming out sometime this summer.
They got effects budget, then they got Super Bowl ad budget. This is, I mean, what more less could you do for, of course, the greatest movie of all time, the movie that, nay, it reinvents cinema.
So we will be looking at the Super Bowl to see if anything comes of the a possible Supergirl appearance. So stay tuned for that. Okay, speaking of Supergirl in movies, the Legion of Superheroes animated movie has been released. So you can now watch it on digital and Blu-ray. So if you are interested in that, you can find it in all the places now. So definitely check it out. I'm sure some other folks have already watched it today. I have purchased it, but have not gotten a chance to watch it. But Supergirl is front and center on the 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray on the poster there. So it seems like it heavily features Supergirl. So I'm very excited about that. And we will discuss that on Supergirl Radio. We will be doing a movie review. So if you have any thoughts about the movie, feel free to bring them and we will talk about it.
Is that streaming or is that just something where I'm going to have to buy physical media for the first time in a long time?
I always am a big proponent of buying digital media.
Oh, and as you should be. I've told you about my disagreements about whether or not we should buy stuff and keep on holding on to stuff and whether or not DVD quality is incredibly inferior. I was like, it's good enough. Anyway, the point being, we stream most stuff now.
It is available for streaming. I know I purchase most things on YouTube just because it's easier for me to watch through the YouTube app. But I know it's on Amazon. It's probably on all the digital places that you can purchase movies. Not on our beloved HBO Max yet, but I'm sure at some point that it will be. So there is that. And you can buy the physical media if you would like to do that. So
you know what they have to do? They have to take it to the max.
They have to take it to the max. It's got to go up there. But I'm glad that another piece of filmmaking is centering around Supergirl. So that's very exciting that there is Legion stuff and a Supergirl stuff for us to consume. So we'll definitely be talking about that in a little bit. So stay tuned for that. And I guess we need to go to the other side of the DC universe in terms of the TV side. Morgan, do you want to give some maybe more sad news, I guess?
Buckle up, people. According to Deadline.com, 2 of the DC series on our beloved HBO Max, 2 of them that did not take it to the max, Titan and Doom Patrol, will be coming to an end. Both recently wrapped their 6-episode season 4A runs on the streamer, and the upcoming second halves of their fourth seasons will be the show's final chapters. Both had been crafted to give the series a proper end, which is very nice and maybe a thing that didn't happen on other shows.
They should maybe do that on other shows.
Maybe they can finish their stuff out on The Flash as well. Titans and Doom Patrol, both from Berlanti Productions and Warner Brothers Television, are the last live action series from the slate of now defunct DC Universe. Oh, DC Universe. They made the transition to HBO Max after the first 2 seasons when the DC Universe folded. Titans and Doom Patrol then ran for 2 more seasons, with the creatives behind both mapping those seasons to complete their story arcs. So it is nice that they got to, go out on their own terms and actually finish their stories versus just kind of end on a cliffhanger where everyone's in jail.
No, is that how Legends ended?
Rebecca, it went out Seinfeld. It was full Seinfeld.
Oh, no.
I did think it was funny though, because for some reason there's a lot of Seinfeld references on all of my podcasts, and Kat had I guess recently watched Seinfeld, like the whole series, like did a binge, and I was like, Kat, did this feel familiar?
I don't know how I've like blocked that out of my memory. I guess it has been a little while since that show ended. But yeah, that's an unfortunate end because most Seinfeld fans I know were not real pleased.
Not the biggest fans of that ending.
A fantastic show. Final episode. It was a little bit of a letdown.
Letdown, yeah.
But you know what? If you loved the final episode of Seinfeld, write us at supergirlradio@gmail.com. I would love to hear your arguments.
Defend its honor.
I would love to hear the argument for why that finale is a great finale. I would be interested in it. But yeah, I'm sad for Titans and Doom Patrol. Great shows in the DC universe. I was partial to Donna Troy on Titans. Also a great Barbara Gordon on Titans. And a fantastic Crypto the Superdog. So lots of good stuff on Titans. Doom Patrol was a crazy show, but very well written and good characters. So I think those were 2 of the better shows in the DC TV world. So I'm sad to see them go, but it sounds like they'll get a proper ending to their stories.
That's also nice to know because, like, I think I'd be open to like watching them at some point and knowing that it has an actual ending versus it's just gonna peter off a cliff at some point. It's very comforting going into a show going like, I'll binge that later and I'll have like a full experience with it.
Yeah, it makes it so that you'll commit to it.
Yes, exactly.
You'll want to sit down and do it, and you'll feel like you've gone on a journey with some characters, and the end was there, and you had a proper beginning, middle, and end, and that's always, to your point, very comforting because it's frustrating when you start a show and then it just abruptly ends, and you're like, well, what am I going to do now? So, so that is very frustrating, but it sounds like those shows are going to end well. Well, in, I guess, better TV news, according to the Hollywood Reporter, Starz is filling out the cast of its drama series, The Veneri, I hope I pronounced that right, of Samantha Bird, which includes Brenda Strong, our favorite Lillian Luther, is in a new drama. The Veneri of Samantha Bird follows the title character as she visits family in New England. There she reconnects with her childhood sweetheart and falls headlong into a seemingly perfect storybook romance. But underneath their fever dream lurks a more unsettling interpretation of the affair. Starz has given the project an 8-episode order. No word on what role Brenda Strong is playing, but I hope it's something villainous and juicy.
I feel like she's gonna be shifty. That's my feeling. That's my vibe. Listen, play to your strengths. She's an amazing villain. If you're getting Brenda Strong in a show and she's just gonna be there to be like, "Good job, honey," I'm gonna be disappointed because that's not what she is for, right? No, she is there to like be scheming in the background to hug you and then go dead in the eyes.
Well, it does say storybook romance, so maybe there's like an evil queen in there that she can play, maybe some sort of evil stepmother or something.
I love it.
So so look out for the Venery of Samantha Bird. Not sure when that's going to be airing, but it will be on Stars. So if you are interested in following Brenda Strong on her next role, that is the one to check out. Well, I think that's it for all of our news. So Morgan, should we get into the Legion Cruiser? We gotta buckle up.
Yeah, gotta
time traveling
check
is
that seatbelt.
It is a doozy. So let's go back to February 29th, a leap year, I guess. 2016
twist.
So we're going back to February 2016 to talk about the season 1 episode Solitude. Time travel feels stranger after during a leap year. I guess it's it's different.
If there was a leap year in 2016, and this is way too much math, does that mean that next year is a leap year?
I would guess so. It's every 4 years, right?
Yeah, right.
So 2016, 2020, 2024, that would be next year. Although for the people in the future, it's going to be
pretty far away.
Just know it's 2024.
It's crazy in the future here. Robot butlers everywhere. Don't worry about it.
Okay, so let's talk about the episode Solitude, and here is the description. Quote, Kara travels to Superman's Fortress of Solitude in hopes of learning how to defeat Indigo, a dangerous being who can transport via the internet and who has a connection to Kara's past, unquote. So this episode is called Solitude, so obviously a reference to the Fortress of Solitude, although I guess you could maybe make the case that there is an emotional solitude that Kara is going through because she's shutting everyone else out. Maybe there's like a meaning to that, more metaphorically.
Deeper meaning, yes.
But let's talk about the Fortress of Solitude, because this is the first time that it's introduced on the show. So Morgan, what did you think about going to the fortress?
I don't think I would care for it. It's cold. It's really chilly. There's no comfy place to sit. Like, not even a couch, man. You got to put a couch in there. Like, where does when Clark goes to this thing, does he ever just kick back and relax in the fortress? It's supposed to be his, like, his place where he can kind of brood and think about and think sad thoughts or whatever. But there's no place for him to, like, I don't know, eat a pint of ice cream and cry. What's he doing in there?
Well, he doesn't really need a couch. He could just hover sideways.
Yeah,
I guess.
Okay.
But if he had guests, well, I guess it's Solitude. So I guess you're not gonna have.
Doesn't he like a nice support of a soft pillow? Why doesn't he get Calex working on that?
It's real. Everything is sharp.
Everything's so sharp.
pointy.
You don't want to sit in there. Don't sit on anything there. Everything's pointy. Besides the fact that I personally would not hang out there, it's not comfy enough for me. I did like the look of it. Like, it looks very like how we've seen the Fortress of Solitude portrayed in other Superman stories. So everything's ice, and there's like, these the big, the snow kind of gently falling. That was very cute, especially when like Kara and James had like a romantic moment. She's got like some of like the snow in her hair, and I was like, oh, this is cute.
Did that make you maybe pull for them in a relationship? Because I don't think you've been quite sold on their relationship.
I can't say it did, but I was like, oh, I do love the like the rom-com vibes that are suddenly like happening here. Got like a little like, oh, it's winter time, and we like each other thing where he like smiles at her and she's got the snow, and I was like, almost show.
They were really trying. They were trying.
They were really trying. I liked sort of the display cases of like she'd like walk around and they were like, oh, there's a Legion ring. Oh, there's this other thing, and then Calex obviously shooting out from like behind an ice boulder or something. Like, how may I help you? Listen, any place that has a Calex, that is appealing. Because I feel like, you're Clark, you're sad, you want to think about home. You go to your giant, sharp ice palace, and you're like, man, I should have decorated this a little different. But then Kalex comes out with a hot cocoa. Man, you're set.
And he knew who Kara was immediately. I guess all the Kalexes are the same. So that was good to know that they had a history, I guess, from Krypton. He did not know his. I don't know if this is the same Kalex who becomes the garbage monster, but he he has a real future ahead of him. Did you know about the giant key to the fortress?
I didn't know about that and or remember, but I do like that it's from the comics. I did think that was funny where she was like, "Oh, does he just leave it under a pile of snow?" And James was like, "Well, I can't pick it up." So even Kara was like, "Ooh, this is hefty," when she picked up that key.
Yeah, so that's one of my favorite Easter eggs in this episode. You mentioned the Legion ring, and they pass by Cal's pod because you got to have a pod on Supergirl. But the giant key was a pleasant surprise because that is it's a wacky thing in the comics, but that is how Superman gets in. He has a giant key that he puts into a keyhole to open up the Fortress of Solitude. So that is how they get in. I think Daryl in the chat says, "I can't believe this episode with James's first visit to the Fortress of Solitude." Well, it's Kara's first visit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Although I don't think it's James's first visit because he takes her there, right?
sounds like he had been there before. So I think this was Kara's first because she didn't want to be reminded of home of Krypton. So she never. I really don't think that was it. I think she was covering up for the fact that Superman probably never asked her because he kind of forgot about her.
I like that they kind of like lampshaded that with having James be like, "Clark never invited you here," and there was a little bit of like she doth protest too much. She was, "No, I didn't want to be reminded of home." Listen, James, please, he's invited me dozens of times, dozens, and like inside she's like, "He's never invited me once.
He never asked me to come.
He dropped me off at that farm and he never came to check on me even once."
Yeah.
Doesn't invite me to his birthday parties. Gets married, doesn't invite me to that either. I don't know what's going on with him.
He only contacts me through that AOL Instant Messenger every now and then when he needs something.
Why can't he ever just pick up the phone and call me? He's got to G-chat me all the time. His away messages are so passive aggressive.
I forgot about away messages.
Do you remember the AIM away messages?
Yes,
those were like awesome. A song lyric, and you'd be like, "I'm in trouble with this person."
Let's bring back away messages. I miss those days. Those are good days.
Right? What a time.
So they go to the Fortress of Solitude to get some information about crazy alien being that they've been introduced to. So what did you think about the first appearance of Indigo on this show?
Well, as my little thing says, I don't know which way to point because it's the opposite. As my little subhead here, introducing myself says, I am a big fan of hand acting. That's just something someone should know about me. That's kind of my title, Morgan Glennon, big fan of hand acting. So obviously this episode for me, what a dream. Chef's kiss. She was doing things with those hands. I was just like, oh my God, that's right. You act with your little talon fingers. Those things looked pretty scary when she went full the ring at the end of the episode, and like arm goes through the computer monitor to choke Win. I was like, first off, would not enjoy that. Definitely
no
fear of mine for sure. But also like those fingers, that's gonna leave a mark. Those things are like talons. They were like razor sharp, and she was coming after everybody with those things. You give Laura Vanderhoor like a talon hand and she's like, "Oh, don't worry, everyone's gonna see these."
Yeah, I wasn't quite sure why she needed claws.
No, I don't know.
But I did.
She did though.
I did enjoy the hand acting. Great fingernail acting. Really knew what to do with those gloves or the claw, however that was. I do want to ask you though. The wig, Indigo's wig, working it or wiggy?
Oh, I hated it. I just didn't understand why, like, one half of it was like braids and the other half of it was like also braids but looser. Like, I don't know. Like, just stick to like one style for your whole head. It was just very strange. It was a weird look. And then like by her like one side of her face it was kind of pulled back in a weird way. Yeah, I wasn't loving the hair. I think they were going for something like, oh, she's robotic and she's like kind of, she's different, she's very alien, and I was just like, I don't love the hair. The color, the color's a little intense too, but like just the styling, I was like, I don't know, that's a little wiggy. I don't think she's quite working it.
Yeah, I would probably say wiggy. It took me out of it in a couple of places. When I noticed the wig, I was like, oh, it's wiggy. Anytime I notice a wig, I think that's maybe a problem. But I did enjoy seeing Supergirl versus Supergirl, so that was pretty fun because Laura Vandervoort, if people are not aware, played Kara Kent / Kara, or I guess Kara Zor-El on a Smallville. So she didn't get to be properly full blown Supergirl by the end of the show, but she was getting there in season 10. But she was a great Kara, and because they call her Kara, not Kara, on Smallville, so I try to pronounce them as they are. So she was a great Kara on Smallville. Really, in my opinion, saved season 7 for me. Like, she was kind of the standout in season 7, so it was good to see her back in the DC mythology.
Yeah, I'll be honest, she's the only thing I remember from season 7. Like, there are seasons where I'll be like, "Oh yeah, that was the season where Lex and Lana hooked up," or "Oh yeah, that was the season where like Chloe found out the secret." And when it comes to season 7, I'm like, "Oh yeah, I know Supergirl was in that." And then I will just like stare off into the distance. There's nothing else in there for me. I have no memories of it.
That's all you need to know, is that Supergirl is pretty prominent in season 7 of Smallville.
Just a saving grace of that season.
Yeah.
Not a great season.
Yeah, everything else was pretty forgettable, but she was amazing. So I was glad to see her come up and be a part of this iteration of the DC universe, and specifically in regards to Supergirl. So I thought she did a really good job, and I thought she was menacing even without the wig and the finger acting, even when she was just on the monitor in Pat Grant's office. I thought even there, just talking to a TV screen, I thought she did a good job. Her performance really sold her as somebody who is about to cause a little chaos in National City.
Yeah, I liked the introduction. Indigo feels like a really good villain, and I think she does come back a little bit later in the season, but not substantially, if my memory serves.
Yeah, we only have, I think, 20 episodes of the season, so not a lot of episodes left. But she does pretty much see us through the end of the season. She, if I remember correctly, and we'll have to rewind and make sure we remember these things. But she's pretty prominent in the finale episode. So there is that.
Yeah, I almost kind of wish they brought her in a little sooner in the season, like maybe right after Astra dies, which would make her like weird crush on Non even creepier. Where she's
so what do you think? I wanted to ask you about that. What do you think is going on between Indigo and Non?
I feel like that was like a bad breakup. He was like, listen, I can't date you internet lady anymore. And she's like, no, how dare you? I think that like they like dated for a while and then they broke up, and then he was like, this is my new girlfriend Astra, and Astra was like, hey, it's nice to meet you, Indigo. And Indigo was like, with her hand, with her claw hands, I think she went like full like honey badger and just jumped on her. And like I got the impression from this episode that there was like definitely like a history, like a sexy history between Indigo and Non, because Indigo was like, I never liked Astra and I'm glad she's dead. Also, boy, you looking good. I was like, Indigo, not now. Read the room, Indigo. But Indigo was like, no, I cannot.
Yeah, so there is something brewing between Non and Indigo. So there is definitely something there in their past. But it's interesting how they pivoted the season, because unfortunately, because of Laura Benanti's I think she had a new baby at the time, and I think she also wanted to go back to Broadway, so she ended up not seeing the season through until the end. So they actually did a decent job to pivot from Astra being the big bad to finding other big bads to fill in that position. So I'm actually kind of impressed looking back at it. They did a decent job.
Yeah, I agree. I think that they pivoted pretty well. Again, I always go back to this pun, but like Non is still kind of a non-presence for me. But I think having him play off of other people. So like in the last episode when he was talking to Kara and he was like, "The next grave will be yours." I was like, oh gosh. And in this one where she's like, "Hey boy, what's up? How you doing?" It's like if you put Non next to like a more interesting female character, he will seem more threatening for some reason. Versus like if it's just Non by himself, I'm like, sit down, Non. We're busy right now. So I thought that she worked really well playing against him. He is also like, the actor has a very good like straight man kind of vibe to him, where somebody can really, Laura Vanderhoort can really like put on those hands and go to town acting wise, and he's just gonna like be the the straight man to play off of her. And I think that really allows the crazier person in the scene to like really shine, because like he's kind of like whatever, Indigo, and she's like, really, whatever, with her hands like all in his face, caressing him with her giant talon nail. Really, does this change things? He's like, no.
Yeah, I don't know if they've ever addressed it. Well, I guess Supergirl and Indigo have a fight, but could Indigo puncture Kryptonians?
I don't know. That's a good question.
I don't think they addressed that in this episode, but
they fight, but I don't think she really like manages to cut her or hit her with her crazy nails. She just kind of wraps her legs around her like, don't move. Which, I mean, I did think that the fight between the two of them was really good. It looked like they were kind of not exactly equally matched, but it was definitely a situation where sometimes with Supergirl, you're like, why can't she just take this villain? Like, whatever, she's Supergirl. And in this one, I bought it. I was like, oh, she seems scary. She can go through the internet and she's got like karate moves.
Yeah, but she shouldn't have super strength to be able to hold Supergirl down. Some of that I had trouble buying. CM Gautier 74 in the chat says, keep in mind that Non and Indigo were stuck in the Phantom Zone for 24 years, so maybe there were shenanigans afoot and someone caught some feelings.
Ooh.
Oh, so that does make a difference. There might have been something brewing in the Phantom Zone. So who knows what that would have been. I mean, we have seen the Phantom Zone on
We
Supergirl.
have.
So they probably had a lot of time in there to talk and whatever they were doing. So there was probably some stuff happening between the two of them in the Phantom Zone. That is a good
Astra was also in the Phantom
observation.
Zone, though, wasn't she?
Was Astra in Fort Roz?
Oh, yeah, but wasn't Fort Roz in the Phantom Zone?
Well, technically, yes. But so how would that work, though? I guess now that I'm thinking about that.
Could you imagine what a nightmare? It's like, it's you and your new honey and your ex, and you're all stuck in you're all stuck in a pocket dimension. There's one building. It's just a giant, like a warehouse.
Cupboards with mirrors. So like all the mirrors are just going to reflect everything that you're dealing with.
You're just hanging out in the warehouse, the one building around. And you're like, man, this isn't great.
This is awkward.
Let's go back to the prison.
but how would that work though, for real? Because the Phantom Zone is this like barren wasteland, and there were a bunch of islands. So where would Fort Ross? Because it was just kind of hanging in space. So was it just up there, or was it like on the ground? Now I have a lot of questions about Fort Ross.
Fort Ross, did they manage to avoid the Phantom Zone Dementors? The worst part of prison. Everyone knows that.
The Dementors.
It's the Dementors. Did they manage to avoid the Phantom Zone Dementors because they were like in their little prison ship, just kind of floating around? Is that like? I think I'm now considering too much like the situation with the Phantom Zone, like. I thought of it more as a planet based on what we see in season 6. But like in season 1, I feel like they talk about it more like a pocket dimension.
Like a dimension,
almost.
yeah.
Where you throw things. You don't want that, throw it in the Phantom Zone. No one will see it.
But also, was Nixley? Do you think Nixley was there, or was like Nixley a recent prisoner in Fort Ross? By the time we saw her in season 6, do you think she would have been there
Well, maybe
during all of this?
Maybe Nixley was a recent Phantom Zone. So maybe what it is that Fort Ross was where Kryptonians sent their Phantom Zone prisoners. So they had like actual facilities, whereas like maybe Nixley and the imps, they sent their prisoners just straight to the planet, like straight to the source. They're like, no, we don't have facilities. Like we don't have the budget for like breakfast, lunch, and dinner,
like cupboards and stuff.
Yeah, and beds and like a library. They've got like a really great library in Fort Ross. Honestly, some really quality books. You're not going to have that though, because we just don't have. Listen, budget cuts are really tough for all of us. And she's like, Dad, you're the budget. He's like, I know. And then sends her directly to the planet source. I don't know. I think we have to do a little bit too much work here on like how any of this works.
Yeah, and I guess with Crisis, that probably changed some things. So I'm just, it's one of those things that we're discovering as we go back. Season 6 is sort of or the end of the show is sort of informing how I rewatch the show a little bit. So I'm now having a lot more questions in the revisiting of it. So any other thoughts about Indigo before we move on?
I just love her.
Yeah.
I love her menacing vibes. I love that like she just wants to blow up the world. Why Indigo? Why not? Don't like those people.
Did you get the impression that she was doing it to be with Non? Like she was like, the only people who are going to survive this are me and the Kryptonians. So she just wanted
wink wink.
She wanted
wink wink.
Time with Non.
Yeah, kind of. Honestly, I think she was just like, you know what? I've been in the internet. It's time to just go down to the studs here on this earth, which frankly, honestly, I understand that issue. Could you imagine you're in like a brand new planet and you're like, what are they about? And then you go into our internet and you're like, you're just like
going to Twitter.
You go into Twitter, you're just two giant eyes staring listlessly, like, oh no. So I mean, I guess, I can't say, I don't say that I agree with Indigo, but maybe I can see how she got there. So maybe she was just like, you know what? Let's HGTV this planet. Let's take it down to the studs and let's redo it with shiplap. Shiplap everywhere, open concept planet. Just me and you, Non, me and you. Maybe some of your friends. We'll let them stick around.
Yeah, so she did release a nuclear bomb.
Yeah.
And she had stretchy arms.
The stretchy arms.
What were your thoughts about the stretchy arms?
That was my big laugh of the episode while I was rewatching it. I forgot about the stretchy arms, gotta be honest. And when he goes like, you need 2 people to turn the key, and she's like, I know, and then she goes, meh. And I gotta be honest, the effects in season 1 so much better than they were like later in the show. Not that one.
that one was a little rough. It really wasn't for me. It wasn't like the shot where her arms went out. It was the next shots, like the close-ups where they like slowly move to the thing. Those are the ones that got me. But yeah, I guess that's just an extension of her electronics, maybe, that she could extend herself. Brainiac 5 has been Brainiac 5 has been known to do that in different media, that he can use mechanical arms and things. So I guess that's where that comes from, but it did look a little not great in some instances.
Yeah, I definitely had some questions about her as a Coluan and as a Brainiac, because obviously later on we get Brainiac 5 on the show. Never got to see him stretch anything. Also, he was more green and she was more blue.
Well, he starts off as more blue.
That's true. He does a little makeover about halfway through his run on the show.
Yeah, I think it had something to do with his inhibitors. So that if I remember correctly, I know New Rachel's in the chat. So let us know if we got that wrong about why Brainy goes from blue to green, because I'm sure New Rachel knows.
Yeah, I see CM Gutierrez asked this question early on in the chat. Brainiac 5 is green, while Brainiac 8 is blue. If they're both Brainiacs, shouldn't they be the same color? It sounds like a SAT question. If one Brainiac is coming from this way and the other Brainiac...
and one is going 500 miles an hour.
When will the Brainiacs meet?
I think it had something to do with the inhibitors. I guess Brainy's inhibitors caused him to be blue, and then when he removed them, let them go, he was the green Brainy that we saw later on.
We have a couple good Brainiac questions from CM Gutierrez, so I'm just going to surface them.
We'll see if we can figure it out.
Maybe we know. Can Brainiac 5 dematerialize and surf the internet like Brainiac 8, or do they each have their individual skill sets?
All right, here's the answer I'm going to guess, is that yes, they should theoretically be able to do the same things. But by the time Brainiac 5 shows up on the series, it is season 3, and they don't have as big of a budget as the show when it was on CBS. So that's my guess as to why they never really showed Brainy doing like mechanical robotic things like that. And I think it was mainly just because of the budget.
I wouldn't be surprised. So last question from CM Gutierrez, last Brainiac question. It took Indigo 24 years in the Phantom Zone to zero in on Kara's pod in order to escape the Phantom Zone. Doesn't that seem slow for such a powerful tech being?
Well, do we know? I guess I have a lot of questions about the Phantom Zone.
So, tying back to all of our questions about the structure of the Phantom Zone.
So would the Phantom Zone have caused a physical constraint? Because I think if the Phantom Zone was somehow more... if the environment there was difficult to operate in, it could have been a problem. The Dementors could have been a factor. So I think the environment maybe could have done something to slow Indigo down. So that's my guess.
I think that's as good a guess as any we will ever get from the show. So that is headcanon accepted. Seems fine. I see Rachel says, I'm thinking that Indigo and any other Coluans who served on Krypton as supercomputers, as we heard from Kalex, had to wear inhibitors. Which is why Kalex responded when Kara said that Coluans were an obnoxious blue alien species.
Makes sense. I buy it. So they are connected. Indigo is Brainiac 8, so would have come after Brainiac 5 a little bit, but definitely connected to him in some way. Although I don't think he ever references her.
No, he doesn't.
On.
Yeah, it's almost like she didn't exist because she was in season 1.
She's part of the Forgotten of Supergirl.
She is part of and such a shame, because what a great villain.
She's one of the greats.
At the end, when her head is just kind of laying there on the thing, and Non's like, well, what do you think about my plan now? And she's just like, I love that her face is just kind of like on the she's disconnected from her body, her head's just floating there, and now she's getting negged by Non. It's too much. It's too much for one.
This relationship is just not right. It's an unhealthy relationship for both of them. I don't think they should be involved.
It's time to cut that cord, you guys.
They are not good for each other, I don't think. Well, I guess we should talk about some other people. There's Indigo and Non revealing some secrets, I guess, about their past history together. And so some of the other characters had some secrets and things they were keeping, lies that they were telling. So a lot of things, some secrets were being revealed in this episode. So Morgan, I guess we'll talk about the biggest one, the most important thing that came out of this episode, other than the hand acting from Indigo, is the moment in which Alex fesses up that she murdered Astra. So what did you think about that?
What a powerful moment, really. I thought that scene was so good. And I forgot it was in this episode, honestly. And I was like, man, this episode's really firing on all cylinders. We got hand acting, we got Calex, and now we get this scene. I thought it was so good because yeah, I think the Solitude could, is obviously about the Fortress of Solitude, but it's also kind of how Kara is working in this episode. She's so mad at John for killing Astra, even though that's not who killed her. That she doesn't want to work with the DEO. She's trying to work all by herself. And so the DEO is, coming to the same conclusions that they're coming to at Catco, but they're not working together. So probably they could have gotten there a lot faster, with resources. And I just thought that was so an interesting way that they kind of brought in that theme without necessarily hitting you over the head with it, that like Kara is doing this all by herself because she doesn't want to deal with John, and kind of the challenges of what happens when she pushes her support system and her team away. And then at the end, when Alex like can't take it anymore of Kara being mad at John and comes clean about that she was the one who killed Astra and then starts crying. I thought that was such a powerful moment, and especially because they really psych you out because Kara looks mad. And then she starts walking and you think she's going to walk right by her, but no, she doesn't, because that's her sister. And she gives her a hug, and then John starts walking by and she's like, no, I forgive you. And also, sorry, I've been kind of a pill lately. And and it's sort of kind of we've kind of had the super family up until now, but I feel like this is kind of the start of them being like one real unit that acknowledges how important they all are to each other.
Yeah, it's the birth of the space family, I guess. Yeah, this was an episode, specifically that scene where I think they really highlighted how good of an actress Kyler Lee is. And I wish the show had leaned into more of that. I was trying to think after I rewatched that scene, what other scenes did I think were so impactful for Alex like that? And it was hard to think of some that were as good as that, because she really Kyler Lee sold me on what Alex was going on and going through in that moment. And I thought that was, to me, that's probably the best performance by Kyler in the series, I think. Just because it's such a good scene, and the way it plays out, in which she finally decides she's gonna tell the truth. I mean, there's a couple of moments like in the episode at the beginning when she brings her the donuts and not the crawlers, very specifically. She has to bury that all inside and has to lie to her sister, lie to Kara, and she doesn't want to do it anymore. So I thought that was a good moment, that the character really got a chance to shine in terms of the material, and the actress got a chance to shine in terms of the acting. And I think that actually really, really paid off there at the end.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's such a powerful scene. And I think, unfortunately, with Supergirl, at least in my opinion, as the show went on, it seems like they got worse at telling consistent good Alex stories. So like season 1, they told like a lot of she had like a lot of great scenes. Season 2, she had a really good, strong arc. Season 3, she had some stuff. And then I think from season 4 on, the Alex stuff is just very shaky. Like sometimes it's great. Sometimes she's like not around. Sometimes her role that you thought she was going to have gets taken by some random other person. You're like,
she has a mind wipe.
Oh, the mind wipe.
A lot of things.
She was almost a boss, and then they kind of took that away from her. Yeah. Which all these things kind of could have been really powerful stories, but I just think in the execution is kind of where it fell flat. But in like season 1, season 2, the Alex stories were always so good, and Kyler always I don't think Kyler ever like phoned anything in, but she was given such good stuff to work with in the early seasons, and this scene is such a good example of that.
So are you relieved now that Alex has told Kara the truth, and they don't have that hanging over them anymore?
Yeah, honestly, I am. I like the this sounds terrible, but I like it when the sisters have conflict, but I don't like it to last for very long. Like
I agree.
like a couple episodes is sort of, in my opinion, the sweet spot. And I know we kind of complained about it. And again, this is the future, so I shouldn't even know about this. But but I think one of my issues with the Mind Wipe story was that it just lasted a little too long. Where I was like, all right, let's get back. And so in this case, it's like, 2 or 3 episodes, which is enough time to like amp up the drama and the angst. And then we can kind of resolve that issue and not have that standing between the sisters.
Yeah, I would have not enjoyed it if it had continued on for much longer than that. So I think they made a good decision to only have it last for a few episodes and then resolve it. I'm glad you pulled that comment up from CM Gutierrez 74.
Yeah, CM Gutierrez 74 says, for the girl who has everything episode was also a great Kyler scene.
I agree.
And Rachel said Alex's coming out story arc, which happens in season 2, also had some really great Kyler scenes, which I 100% agree with. I think season 2 was a strong Alex season. I think, after season 2, season 3, that's when things with Alex started to get a little bit like, what's the plan for this character? And I don't know that they knew, honestly.
I said it at the time in the future that they got her to director of the DEO too quickly, and then they didn't know what to do with her. So I think that was the problem, is that should have been her endpoint.
This is a fun fact from Aaron in the chat. So apparently Jesse Rath said that in the season 4 finale, when he was being tortured and being all of the brainies, he became an indigo brainy and tried to seduce the guy torturing him, but it got cut.
Oh my gosh, that would have been amazing. What if he had done some finger acting?
What if he was like, hello, sir?
Oh,
we were robbed. We were robbed.
Hurts. That hurts.
That hurts right in the heart. We could have gotten some Jesse Rath finger acting. Hand acting. I'm mad.
That would have been fantastic. Because he really did a good job in that scene. And we don't know yet because it's in the future, but he did a good job in that scene. Oh, okay. So another instance of some people having some secrets that are hanging over their heads are James and Lucy. So Lucy's still kind of like, why are you hanging out with that Supergirl? What about our relationship? So what did you think about James and Lucy, and what James is wanting Kara to do with letting him tell Lucy that Kara is Supergirl?
It's such a complicated one for like the James and Lucy, because in one aspect, it's kind of unreasonable for him to be like, hey, could I tell your huge, absolutely massive secret to my girlfriend who you kind of know but not that well. On the other hand, like, she is Lois Lane's sister. She is Lucy Lane. She's got all of this sort of background and knowing about the super people.
She also has ties to the military, though. I think that would have been maybe a red flag.
Yeah, I go back and forth on like whether or not it's reasonable this is a reasonable ask from his part about like whether on the flip side, Kara's kind of just wandering around just telling every single person she meets that she's I think it was the last episode of the episode before where there was like a professor who used to be a
Truth,
criminal,
Justice, in the American Way,
where she was like, by the way, my name is Kara Danvers, and if you ever need me, here's my address.
Here's my address, my phone number.
I'm also Supergirl. Bye.
Here's my business card. I work with Cat Grant.
So sometimes, because she is so cavalier with the secret, like, it's hard for me to be like, later in the series with Lena as well, it's like, come on, though. Like, everybody in the DEO, like, people you don't even know, like, people in IT and human resources definitely know who you are. Maybe you could tell, like, a close personal friend that secret. So, yeah, I go back and forth about whether or not it's reasonable. I think she made some good points about, like, it being a really bad time for somebody to learn it right at that moment, which he was like, yeah, but I wanna, which is hard to argue with.
What I thought was funny, and this is only because it's I guess more of a Supergirl Radio joke, is that the biggest bone of contention for Lucy in this episode is that James has told Kara about his dad's camera. And she did not know that story. And so I enjoyed that immensely.
Yeah, that made me laugh because I was like, oh, the camera comes back into play. We know what's about to happen with that camera.
That camera is so important. And when it is taken away, big changes come for James. When that camera
Big changes. He's like,
gets destroyed.
He's like, oh my God, it's like I just lost my whole personality. And my whole reason for being. No, it's not possible to purchase another camera. I must change my life. This
was the only one in existence. There are no more cameras.
What a time for James in like early season 2. He's like, Kara drops me like a hot potato. My camera is broken. Who am I? I think we watched James go through like a midlife crisis.
He did.
Like, in real time.
Yeah.
Quarter life crisis or whatever it was. But like James, it's okay.
Yeah, I'm surprised he didn't tell Lucy about the camera. He seemed to really want to tell everybody about the camera, so I'm really kind of shocked.
Yeah, I was like, oh, that's the big secret is about the camera?
We know about the camera.
Twist. Yeah, it also seemed a little bit like he did tell her that story. Like, I like how she tries to play it off with like, oh, it was just like, she tries to play it off in a way that actually makes it worse, where she's like, oh, like it wasn't a big deal that he told me. And she's like, yeah, he hasn't told me anything about this very important thing in his life, and he told you in a way that made it seem like it wasn't a big deal. That makes it more hurtful. I was like, you could see like sometimes when you have a conversation with someone, you realize somebody else, like a third party, hasn't told them the thing, and you try to backtrack like desperately, but instead all you're doing is digging yourself in
making
deeper.
It worse.
I feel like it's a very relatable feeling. I felt for Kara in that moment where you're like, no, I didn't mean it like that. I didn't mean it like that. I'm just going to go. I'm just going to fly off the balcony. Goodbye.
Lucy does seem intuitive in this episode because she seems to pick up on the fact that James loves Kara and Kara loves James. So I guess she's picking up what they're putting down, and she's not real happy about it. So that's, I think, kind of how the episode ends, if I'm remembering correctly. So I guess the secret of the camera really opened up her eyes about what was really going on. Because for a while I was like, why is she so jealous of Supergirl? She never sees Supergirl and James together. She sees Kara and James together all the time. Wouldn't you be more suspicious about Kara? They're the same person, but she doesn't know.
Exactly. Like there are several scenes where like Kara and James like have their little heads together, like whispering, giggling to each other. And she comes in and she's like, why are you spending so much time with Supergirl? And James is like, what do you mean? And she's like, yeah, like the other day when you spent time with Supergirl. Meanwhile, Kara's like, yeah, I love you. Yeah, I agree. It seemed really funny in this episode, especially when you see like her walk into so many scenes with Kara and James like together, like they're like trying to figure stuff out, and like she's mad about Supergirl. It's like, I don't know. There's some other stuff going on you might want to cue into. I also, CM Gutierrez brought up a good point in the chat. She says, when Kara told Lucy that James chose her, I cringed for Kara. Basically, Kara indirectly told Lucy that she was an option, not an end goal. That was the line I think I cringed at the hardest in the whole episode, when she's like, James could have anyone, but he chose you. I was like, really? Anyone? I mean, James is great, but like, let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, so there's a lot of love triangle stuff happening in that section of Catco. In another section of Catco, there's another relationship blossoming, and New Rachel mentions it in the chat, asking, is this the episode with the Wynn and Siobhan thing? So they're getting close, Wynn and Siobhan, in this episode. So what did you think about things with Siobhan, who will maybe turn into another character from DC Comics that we know of? But what did you think about her love connection with Wynn in this episode?
I thought it was a little abrupt, honestly. I did like the them kind of connecting about their like deadbeat dads, essentially, and I and like learning a little bit more about Siobhan, because besides this, she's just been like kind of pure villain, just like, hey, I'm gonna get this before Kara, and Kara jokes about like throwing her into the atmosphere. But yeah, I did think it was like a little abrupt the way that they went from talking about their childhood traumas to her being like, this is hot, actually. What? Okay, only on television would that be a thing that happens in that way.
Yeah, I think they did rush that relationship a little bit. Although it was nice to hear them talk about their fathers and their families and have that connection. But I think it was a little rushed compared to some of the other relationship drama on the show, which is actually, it like, for example, the James and Kara stuff sort of ends abruptly at the beginning of season 2, but for most of season 1 it was a nice slow burn that took its time. So this one was not a slow burn. Gwen and Siobhan happened very quickly because they only had her for 3-4 episodes, something like that. So they had to kind of get in there and get out. So Gwen and Siobhan are now a couple in the workplace. I don't know if they have to fill out papers with HR so quickly, but they have made some kind of connection. I did find it interesting though that Siobhan struggled with Kat in this episode.
Oh yeah.
The first time around when we meet assistant number 1, assistant number 2 was knocking it out of the park. She was going to be the new Kat Grant, and in this one, she did not know that she needed to open up the mail and check for anthrax like Kat wanted. So I thought it was interesting that she was dropping the ball a little bit. So I don't know what that says about her character in this episode, but I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting too. It felt like she was like, she had done so well that she was starting to get like a big head. She was starting to get like ahead of herself and not like listen or pay attention to Kat. She was already like planning her media empire. And I think that kind of knocked her down a peg when Kat, kind of takes it out on her and goes like, that's not, why would you give me something, an unopened package? Why wouldn't you check it? And then I think everything with the cheating website kind of bringing back up stuff about her father and him being in that data leak. I think that kind of made her a little bit more human in this episode, which I think allowed like the Win Siobhan thing to happen. I think she was a little down. She's a little down on herself, and Win was there, so. And he was like, sure, all right.
Yeah, so we'll see how that progresses as the storyline continues, because that is not the last time I think we will see Gwen and Siobhan together. Morgan, do you have any other thoughts about this before we close up our time in the year of our Lord 2016? Did you have any other thoughts?
Yeah, I really liked, again, I say it every season 1 episode, I really liked this one. I thought I was like remembering as I was going along, like, oh yeah, this was the episode with Indigo. I remember loving the Indigo episode. And sometimes like you have a more rosy imagination of an episode, and then you watch it and you're like, oh, it wasn't as good as I remember. But like, just like the Livewire episode, this one was solid. I didn't care about and most of that love triangle nonsense, but it also didn't detract in any major way from the episode. Like, I didn't feel like put off by it. And I liked that even though Lucy was unfortunately kind of like the extra person in the relationship, it turns out, I like that she got to have that moment where she honestly figures out what's going on and kind of saves the day. If like Lucy hadn't been like, oh, they're going for the nukes, would Kara have known to speed off there?
Yeah, I think Lucy did play a part in that. Although I agree with Lindsay that Lucy really should have been able to figure out Supergirl's secret identity anyway. Lucy, she's smart in some regards, and then others, she's like, I don't know. You could have tried harder to figure out that secret identity, but she did play a pivotal role in this episode, knowing her connections to the government and her past in the military. So I guess that did come into play to know what was going on with those nukes. So yeah, Lucy for me is a little hit or miss in some of these episodes, but for the most part, I agree with you about the episode. I mean, I'm kind of with you that I'm not crazy about the love triangle or some of the relationship drama, but I really liked going to see the Fortress of Solitude. I like getting to hang out with Kellex again. I liked Indigo a lot. I think her relationship, the only really real relationship I'm interested in at this point in the show is the Indigo Non stuff because it is so weird and complicated. So I'm interested in that. But really, I think the standout scene in this episode is that moment where Alex confesses that she killed Astra and tells Kara the truth. I think that is one of the big monumental scenes in the series, not just of season 1. So this is a really strong episode. It's a great one to revisit. I thought the effects of the Fortress of Solitude were actually pretty great. We got to see the Jor-El and Lara statues inside there as well. So that was just a big treat for comic book fans, I think, to see some of that Fortress of Solitude mythology realized, even though it doesn't have a comfy couch or a comfy pillow inside it.
That's how I would improve it. I'm just saying.
Yeah, it could maybe go for a redesign, but I think getting to see it as it's, in its full glory, I think is a good thing. All right. Well, I guess maybe we should
buckle back up,
strap back in, and then get back into 2023.
Woo! Back
right. And now that we are back in the future, I guess we should get to some listener feedback.
Yeah. Our first piece of feedback comes from Daryl, who wrote in with some thoughts about Solitude, writing, Kara, I don't kill. Me, not yet. We all love the supers, but they have a habit of trying to force their moral code onto others. Remember when Wonder Woman killed Maxwell Lord in the comics? Well, Batman and Superman were pretty upset about that one, not respecting that Diana is a warrior and doesn't have the same no killing rule as them. Kelly Watch, crushed velvet for the
Yeah, we should mention the Kelly moment here in this episode.
Kelly was on the fashion beat. She was mentioning that crushed velvet was having a moment. I do remember 2016. I can say that unfortunately crushed velvet was having a moment then. I remember because I was like, why don't I try out this velvet trend? Can I recommend everyone against trying out a velvet trend? I got a dress. Velvet doesn't really move. It doesn't move with you.
Yeah,
so I'd be like sitting down and then I'd get up and I'd be like, oh my God. And then I'd have to like rearrange the dress. It was terrible. Anyway, Kelly was on
idea.
Something.
It's comfy, but it doesn't really have a real practical use.
It's not a practical fabric. Let's maybe they should have let Kelly get through that pitch. Maybe it was like crushed velvet is having a moment. Let's all stop doing that. Let her finish.
Yeah, I wanted to read that. What was she gonna say about crushed velvet?
Let me know
she
what
had
your
an opinion.
Take on crushed velvet is. That's what I want to know.
Wasn't there a guy on Love Is Blind season 3 who was really
obsessed
into
with velvet? Yeah, I think it was SK.
It was SK.
SK
That's
was
right.
really into velvet.
No, okay,
did he have like a velvet couch?
I think he did. Love Is Blind side moment there. Sorry.
Of course. So for some people, crushed velvet is always having a moment. Daryl goes on to say, Kara has my sympathy in this episode. To be forced by James to admit her secret identity to Lucy when James knows how Lucy feels about the supers. All of this for James to try and save a relationship that is on its way out the door. Trying to save a relationship with a character that in a few short months will be gone and never mentioned again. Well, James, to be fair to James, he didn't know that.
He wasn't aware of that.
He didn't know that Lucy Lane was going to fall through the gaps between seasons.
Well, and then she would reappear, but on Superman and Lois, which does not acknowledge Supergirl in any way. So they could kind of do whatever they wanted to with Lucy Lane on that show.
Daryl goes on to say, I have a hard time believing this is James' first trip to the fortress. So why is he being written like he knows nothing about it?
I think we referenced that earlier, that we think it was Kara's first trip to the fortress.
He says, who else noticed the Plastino license plate on the truck? Not me.
Yeah, that is at the very beginning when Supergirl saves that family in the car after Indigo causes all of the traffic lights to go bazonkers. So there's I think it's the Plastino license plate on the truck that is almost about to hit them. So if anybody doesn't know, Al Plastino was the co-creator of Supergirl. And I think he also had a hand in the creation of either Brainiac or Brainiac 5 and elements of the Legion of Superheroes. So it actually is very fitting that he would also be referenced in this episode, not just because of his co-creator status with Supergirl, but he also added to the Superman mythology in many ways. So I always really like when the creators are referenced in these episodes.
That's a neat little Easter egg. Daryl says, seeing Laura Vanderhoort on TV makes me so happy. Why are they discussing private DEO business in the public hallway of Kara's building instead of just staying in the apartment? It's because Kara she wants to share. She's a sharer at heart.
Can you imagine being her neighbor?
Could you imagine? I can't imagine being her neighbor. They're like, oh my God, could this girl stop spilling government secrets in the hall? She's so loud.
I would be so into it because I love a conspiracy theory.
Against the door, listening in.
Most conspiracy theories do turn out to be true. So I would have been into it like, what is the government doing? What is that secret government doing? And then I would have also been into, because I love soap operas. So when James and Lena break up, because I think that happens at Kara's apartment as well.
I think James and Lena break up in the car, remember? Because she just pushes him out.
They had 2 breakups. One time they had a big fight after Thanksgiving. Then they finally called it quits when she made him like hop out of that Rolls Royce.
She didn't even slow down. She just opened the door for
pushed him out. But I think they have a fight in that hallway. I think it's outside of Kara's apartment. So I would have been like, other than like the secret government agency drama, I would have been really interested. What are James and Lena breaking up? I would have been so into that.
God.
If I was the neighbor, I would have been so nosy.
I thought they were going to be together forever. Like at the door. I love it. Daryl says, I've said this before, but when Alex told Kara about the fortress in the pilot, it was like she was giving the information to Kara for the first time. Did all those invitations take place between the pilot and this episode?
You mean Superman's invitations?
Yes.
I don't know.
You know what?
I mean, I guess it could have been once they started their IM chat relationship. Maybe they reconnected, and he was like, "Hey, Kara, you need to come to my fortress."
Hey, do you want to come and watch the Super Bowl at the fortress? She's like, I'm just really busy, and then she like puts the phone down. She whispers to Alex, he doesn't have a couch.
There's no TV in there. How are we supposed to watch the Super Bowl?
He's like, yeah, I would like totally love you to come and hang out with me. You're gonna have to bring your own pillows. Do you have like a pocket television? She's like, what? That's not a thing that exists. He's like, okay, it's fine. We can just project. Yeah, I feel like I love the headcanon that she's just like, he's invited me dozens of times, and then like James turns around and like a single tear escapes her. Her eyes, he hasn't invited me once. She's just trying to keep a brave face on it.
James did say in this episode, I just want to document it, that he said that Supergirl was faster than Superman.
That is true. I picked up on that, and more intense turns.
That is true in the comics. Jeff Loeb wrote that in when Supergirl returned, I believe, in 2005 or 2006 to the comics. When Kara Zor-El returned, he made a point to say that Supergirl was faster than Superman. So that is comic book accurate. So I'm going to put that forward there.
She's pretty fast. Maybe she's faster than other people within the comics.
I mean, it leads
faster
one to believe
Superman, maybe faster than other people. And then Daryl said, "Why didn't putting the code in work the first time?" I was actually unclear about this as well. I thought I had like looked down at my phone and missed something important. But yeah, why didn't it work the first time?
Did she input it incorrectly?
Did she have a hard time putting it in? I got a little bit.
Is it one of those things where like you put it in and then you like can't backspace? And
no.
Then I gotta do it all clear. I need to clear it out. I messed it up.
It turns out the code panel is actually just a rotary phone. You're like, oh no, I'm gonna start all the way over now. Start it over. Everyone's doomed in that case.
That's yeah. I don't know, but that's my best guess.
And then Daryl also writes in season 2, episode 10, titled "We Can Be Heroes." Livewire is kidnapped by an unnamed mad scientist, not Cadmus, because if it had been Cadmus, they would have bothered giving the kidnapper a name.
So yeah, I'm gonna have to revisit "We Can Be Heroes" because that was a discussion that was happening during our discussion of live wiry things. So definitely gonna have to re-watch that episode, and I don't mind doing it because I actually like the live wire episodes.
Those
So
are always good.
I'll have to definitely check that out. Well, I guess before we wrap up our discussion on Solitude all the way, I guess we need to make some snap judgments. In the game of snap judgments, each person is presented with 2 options, but must only choose one. First instincts are recommended and explanations are unnecessary.
Okay, so our first snap judgment is Better Fortress of Solitude comic book reference, the Giant Key, or the Legion of Superheroes ring?
I think it's harder to pull off the Giant Key. So I think that's one I didn't expect. So I'm going to go Giant Key on this one.
I liked the Giant Key for like the comical nature of it, just like seeing her like lug this giant key over to the keyhole. That was fun. I was just like a little bit of like fun comic lore mixed with physical comedy. I'm always a big fan of, so I thought that was a lot more fun. The Legion ring's cool, but give me a giant key any day.
Yeah.
And Rachel actually had a question earlier in the chat that I'm going to resurface, which is, did anyone else notice that the Legion ring in this episode looks different from the one we see in season 3?
I think we covered that on Supergirl Radio. I want to say that there was feedback that came in a long time ago about the Legion rings. Let me see if I can find that. There is actually, and new Rachel sent it in. So what I will do is I will link that new Rachel in the video description below the live stream and the video here on YouTube, and I'll also include it in the audio podcast show notes. So if people want to go check out your theory, I have that documented nicely with pictures and evidence to back up the theory. So we'll include that in there. So thanks for reminding us about that. We'll make sure to include that.
Okay, next snap judgment. And I'm sorry, I read ahead and I know that this is gonna break me. Who is the more villainous threat? Indigo, who is described as the most dangerous prisoner ever sentenced to Fort Roz, or Leviathan, which is described as the greatest threat of our time.
Just the greatest threat
of our time.
The more villainous threat.
Oh boy.
I actually think that Indigo is scarier. So I'm going to go the most dangerous prisoner ever sentenced to Fort Roz, because Fort Roz had some pretty nasty folks in there. So if you're the most dangerous prisoner of that place, I think you're the most villainous threat.
Yeah, I'm going to have to give it to Indigo. First off, hand acting, big fan, as noted. I think she's a great villain, but also Leviathan, let's be honest, was kind of a lame villain. They were everywhere and everyone, except they were only really just one old lady in Rama Khan, and we never knew who the head of it was.
And Pencil Skirt, I guess.
And Pencil Skirt. We never found out who the head of Leviathan even was, and their evil plan was a bad tech rollout. So yeah. I got to give it to Indigo. At least she was a real villain.
Well, to be fair to Leviathan, they did brainwash the entire world with the help of Lena Luthor removing everyone's free will.
Lena's like, LOL, my bad.
So I guess That's pretty villainous, but I still just in my heart of hearts want to give it to Indigo.
It's villainous, but I think we can agree it lacks pizzazz.
Yes. So actually, I guess we could look at it another way. Who is more villainous based on the description of them?
I feel like you, based on the description and not what we actually see on the show, you'd have to give it to Leviathan, the greatest threat of our time, right? The description is lying, but I think you can't
get worse than that, I guess.
That is amazing.
New Rachel says Leviathan would have been 100% better if the head of it had been Indigo.
Yes. I think Rachel also pitches something incredible, which is it's Indigo, but just as literally a disembodied head, still giving orders to Ramakan and Pencil Skirt. They just kind of have the head like propped up on like a little chair or something.
But that actually makes sense because it was a she. The head of Leviathan was supposed to be she.
Yeah.
And they were a race of alien like technology people.
I love it.
I mean, it adds up to me.
It's 100% to me. Also, Lindsay making a strong point in the chat. Leviathan was a great threat because the writers forgot to have the heroes catch the head of Leviathan. She essentially got away by default.
True. That is a strong point because she's still out there somewhere.
She's out there causing trouble.
She got away. That is a good point.
It's Indigo's head on some sort of robot body, just kind of crawling away. It's yeah, good for her.
Wow.
I hope she's thriving.
That makes season 5 even worse. They like brainwash the entire world, remove people's free will, and then the head of Leviathan just got away scot-free.
What are we gonna do?
For a show that was all about justice, there was none.
There was no justice for Leviathan or for what we had to go through watching that storyline. Another great question, another great snap judgment. Which trait of Indigo's do you wish you had? The stretching ability or the ability to travel through computers and smartphones?
I thought I would have an answer, and I don't. I think I would want to be able to travel through technology because then you wouldn't have to. I'm trying to think, would you still have to travel by plane? Because planes are technology. So you could still do air travel if you wanted to.
You could.
In some form or fashion.
I don't know why you would ever choose to do air travel though. If you
because then you would have to go go to the check-in counter, check your bags, go to baggage claim. You'd have to go through you'd have to go through security. So.
But my question is, okay, so I think traveling by traveling by computers and smartphones, do you get into like a ship of Theseus situation where like if you've been reconstructed on a different in a different area, are you really you?
Oh.
Right?
Well, I did listen to a scientist on like the Science Channel one time talk about like Star Trek and how you like what do they call that?
You up, yeah.
Yeah,
right?
when you kind of come back in, like the science behind that you would end up inevitably like built a different way, like you wouldn't technically be you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess you would lose maybe part of you would lose yourself in it.
Would you lose some aspect of you by like taking a hop into your smartphone and going to Italy for some gelato? I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
But okay,
this is a bigger question, I think, that we're asking ourselves now.
This is more of like a philosophical question about the you, about the you-ness of you. Mm-hmm. Also, I'm trying to think of the advantages of having a stretchy ability.
They seem a little bit more limited than being able to travel wherever I want.
There is a downside though, because what if you like stretched your hand out, around the hallway and down the stairs and down the street or whatever, and then you got caught? What if like your stretchy arm got caught on something? I think that could have its
you wouldn't want to stretch too far because if you can't see where you're stretching, it could get anywhere.
You have to be able to control that thing. But you know what? I would like to be able to dunk a basketball. I would like to be able to do something like climb heights and not worry about falling. Maybe I'm going to go stretching ability. I've talked myself into stretching ability.
I mean, I do feel like if you've gone through the internet and you're somewhere else, you might be a different person. But listen, but now I'm a different person on like the Amalfi Coast. So I'm going to I don't love air travel. It's kind of long and boring. I get a little bit of plane sickness. I can avoid all that by just hopping into my cell phone, hopping out of your cell phone. Now I'm in Alabama. I'm taking the hit on my very identity so I can avoid air travel.
Who cares what I am or who I am as long as I'm where I am? So
I'll be fine.
Makes
probably. I've traveled a couple of times and you're like, Morgan, you're different. I'm like, am I? But I've got a head scan coming out of my head now. It's fine. And our last snap judgment is a very important one. Crullers or powdered sugar donuts?
And I think this was also that was what I came up with, but I think CM Gutierrez maybe had the same snap judgment in the chat. So we thought the same snap judgment here. So crullers or sugar powdered donuts. I'm gonna go donuts. I know crullers are kind of the same thing, but they're like twisted.
Yeah.
I don't need all that. I just need a donut and some powdered sugar. That's all I need.
You're like, I'm a simple folk. Listen.
Yeah. I don't need it to be twisty and have presentation or whatever. I just need donuts and sugar.
Yeah, I looked at the pictures of the crullers because I was like, I don't know. Maybe I should judge. And then I was like, I agree. I don't really need it. I don't need it. I'd go the powdered sugar donuts too. Like those things are good.
Yeah, Cara really seemed to be adamant about the crullers.
Yeah, I was like,
why? I mean, I guess
donuts, regular donuts are pretty good as well. Cara.
Yeah, stop being judgy. I think it's fine. Yeah, so that one was a really important one. I hope everybody made the decision that they are happy with on that one. But we are going to leave snap judgments and carry on with gifts. No judgments on your snap judgments. All right, and now we need to get to some Supergirl Radio and some DC TV plugs. If you would like to contact Supergirl Radio, you can post a comment on our website at supergirlradio.com. You can email us at supergirlradio@gmail.com. If you'd like to leave us a voicemail, you can call us at 678-718-7252. You can like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter and Instagram, all at Supergirl Radio. You can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Radio Public, Podchaser, and Spotify, where we also have a Spotify playlist that includes music featured on and inspired by the CW's Supergirl TV series. We are listed on DC's fan page, which you can find at dccomics.com/DC-fans. If you like what we do, we encourage you to give us a rating and write us a review on Apple Podcasts. If you enjoy our Supergirl Radio live streams, make sure to subscribe to the DC TV Podcast YouTube channel and hit that notification bell to get notified when we go live and wired. DC TV Podcast also has a TeePublic store, so if you're in need of new DC TV related t-shirts, tank tops, sweatshirts, onesies, mugs, notebooks, pillows, or stickers, go to supergirlradio.com and click on the TeePublic store link at the top of the page.
Now see here, Supergirl Radio is part of the DC TV Podcast Network, so if you want to listen to other shows, we've got The Flash Podcast, Legends of Tomorrow Podcast, The Lituation Room, DC on HBO Max Podcast, Stargirl Podcast, Superman and Lois Radio, Green Lantern Podcast, The Sandman Podcast, DC TV After Dark, and Justice League Dark Podcast.
And since we talked about Solitude this week, we have some Fortress of Solitude and Brainiac designs in the DC TV Podcast TeePublic store that we would love to suggest.
Yeah, nothing specifically Brainiac 8, but if you're a big fan of Brainiac and Brainiac 5 and Brainiac 8, also known as Indigo, we've got some Brainiac designs in the store. And we've got a Fortress of Solitude design, which is pretty cool. Looks 80s and fun.
I do love that Fortress of Solitude design. I might have to get that for myself.
So if you're into the Fortress of Solitude, we've got hoodies, t-shirts, mugs, stickers, all kinds of things in the TeePublic store. So if you want to go and check that out, you can definitely hit up the store. Also, we would like to thank our legion of super sponsors for supporting Supergirl Radio. These people are Michael, Anne-Marie, Yvonne, Quinn, Nicola, Abby, Miriam, Nicole, Brian, Ethan, Danny, Tara, and Majuba. We have some levels that you can check out on patreon.com/Supergirl Radio, although we are going to be changing those soon. I think we're going to hopefully pull the plug on that sooner rather than later and hopefully offer you more bang to your buck. So if you want to check those out, we'll be updating the Patreon page here soon. So thank you to all of our supporters, and we will update you when those are ready to go. And I guess you can find me on several places. You can go to Vero, the social media platform Vero, and I'm at Derby Kid. You can find out what I'm watching or sometimes reading. I recently watched the Enola Holmes movies on Netflix. Really liked them. So very good movies, and I hope we get to see more of maybe like a Enola Holmes 3. Can we make a trilogy out of that?
Let's do it.
So I've been watching that. So I talked a little bit about that on Vero. You can follow me on Instagram at the Derby Kid. I'm doing some experimental video shots, trying to figure out how to fake a drone shot with a monopod. So I'm doing a little bit of experimentation there. So if you want to check that out. And I'm also on YouTube. I have a personal channel at youtube.com/duckmilkprod, where I do a live stream on Sunday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern. Hopefully I will be able to do one this week to do another critical film, an art criticism analysis of the film critic reception of Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice from the top critics of Rotten Tomatoes. So still going through that, still dropping IQ points because of it. But it's a good experiment in art criticism and how we discuss film. So if you want to hang out with me on Sunday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, that's what I will be doing there.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram. I'm at Mojotastic. And you can also find me as a co-host on the Legends of Tomorrow podcast, where we just talked. If you didn't get enough DC talk from Rebecca and I, and you're like, I want to hear Morgan's opinions the same, but a little different with some other people's opinions. The legendary ladies and I got together last night to, or, you know, in the future, if you're still in 2016 listening to this, and and we talked about the future state of DC Comics, so actually DC Universe, the movies and the TV shows, and kind of went down project by project of like what we thought and our initial takes on them. And I think we might be getting together a little bit later this week to talk about the news that Legends might show up on The Flash, but I think we're now going to be talking more hypothetically, since maybe they're not, and say, if they did show up, what would we want to see from the Legends? So if you have ideas, if you watched Legends of Tomorrow, you can always tweet us at legends_podcast, or you can send us an email, the legendspodcast@gmail.com, and let us know like what you would like to see if a couple of Legends could show up on Flash and close some stuff out. Would you want them to still be in prison, for example?
Yeah, I guess the last Legend that we saw on the Flash was Ray Palmer.
Yeah.
Maybe the last one.
Didn't love what they did with Ray on the Flash. So I was my initial reaction to that news about them showing up on the Flash was, oh, okay. So could be for that. Who knows if they will? Who knows if they won't? But apparently, it was confirmed and then unconfirmed today. It's been a real roller coaster for me.
I think what the legendary ladies should do is write your ideal episode. Just like come up with a pitch for what you would do if you were writing the episode. Where would you take it? I would be interested in hearing that.
Barry kind of shows up at the beginning. He's like, oh my God, guys, what a crazy day. And then we flash back and it's just a Legends of Tomorrow episode. And then at the end, Barry comes back and he's like, seriously, what a day. End credits.
The best episode of The Flash ever.
It's just an episode of Legends. I love it.
Yeah, so hopefully we'll be hearing some Legends talk on the Legends of Tomorrow podcast and hear what y'all have to say about that. Well, in the meantime, though, I think that's going to do it for this episode of Supergirl Radio. But until next time, I'm still Rebecca Johnson.
And I'm still Morgan Glennon. And thanks for joining us for Supergirl Radio Rewind.
McGurk! I love typing.
Not mess with my Google Docs, Meeksy.
Supergirl Radio is going live every night of the week. How do you like it? Is becoming a human burrito a plus or a minus? I don't know. It does seem snug.
I mean, they say you are what you eat.
Kira. I love that.
So I do a podcast called Supergirl Radio, and one of our segments is Lena Luthor, Boardroom or Ballroom, because her outfit,
she looks like a boss in this coat.
Nasty Luthor like a different Luthor? It's not just Lena being mean?
No.
Helen Slater here. It's so fun to know that you're hosting a podcast called Supergirl Radio.
Yeah!